Test, test.
Good evening and welcome. My name is Celeste Prescott, Public Information Officer with Southwest Incident Management Team 1. And this is the Calf Canyon and Hermits Peak fire update for May 26th. And I'm going to go ahead and start off with some updated numbers. We are currently reporting 312,057 acres. We've moved up another percentage to 47% contained and up to 3,009 personnel as of today. I'm going to go ahead and open it up with an overview of the west side from Operations Section Chief with Southwest Incident Management Team 1, Jason Coyle.
Yeah, good evening. So before I go to the map, a couple things about the next few days that I wanted to share with you. Number one is that with the hotter and drier weather, you can anticipate that you're going to see more smoke on the fire. We welcome that because it helps us to identify the areas where there could be some growth, and it allows us to be able to suppress them. If there's anything that gets out of our lines, then Celeste will hit me on the head with something hard, and I'll come in here and we'll do an update to make sure that you guys know what's going on. There's going to be smoke, though. You're most definitely going to see smoke over the coming days, and especially as if the wind from the south to the north starts to carry some of the stuff from the other zone that I'm sure they're going to talk about. So part of the process that we went through today as we're getting ready to transition in the coming days with another team is looked at the problem all over again and kind of broke it down and put it back together, if you will. And what we try to do through that process we call red teaming is identify the relationships between the different aspects of what we have planned, what we intend to accomplish, and look for those weaknesses in that plan and ways that we can bolster it up. So when I go around the map, I'll talk about some of those areas that we saw some weaknesses and the actions that we took to be able to minimize the potential that those weaknesses will lead to a problem. The other thing that we do when we red team this is that we look at the diverse perspectives. So there's a couple ways to approach it. One is say, hey, this is what I think we should do, and I think everything we're doing is right. Sound good? And the other way is like, hey, what am I missing? And so there's a lot of that talk today about the what am I missing? What are the areas where there may be a weakness? What are the things the assumptions that we're making that may or may not be true that are critical to our plan? So going through that process today, I feel like we've arrived at a good place to be able to to not only integrate with the incoming team effectively over coming days, but also to make sure that we're ready to deal with anything that emerges as we get our first test. So we'll talk about a wind test, or I'll talk about a wind test a couple times, I'm sure, as we keep going through this critical fire weather event. And basically, a test is just fire that hasn't seen wind, that's moved into fuels over the past few days and hasn't really had an opportunity to put a blower on it and make it heat up. It's going to get that opportunity. So we don't feel really good about our lines until they've had one of those tests, because we know that the fire that looks like it's parked under conditions that are mild may not look the same under conditions that are extreme. So we actually, right now, we welcome those extreme conditions because we want to see where we need to take action. And then finally, as we're going through that red teaming process, we talked about things that could minimize the potential that we could respond effectively to the fire in areas where it may emerge. And some of those we need your help with. So first thing is if you're traveling on the 518 road, watch out for us, and please don't pull over to check it out. Just move through. One of the main reasons for that is that the helicopters that we would use to support our operations on the ground, some of their buckets weigh almost 6 tons, 11,500 pounds. So if the helicopter has a mechanical problem and there's a choice between jettisoning its external load and crashing, it will jettison that load. If you happen to be underneath that load when it gets jettisoned, it will kill you. So we don't want you to be around there, and we'd ask that you that you don't hang out in those areas. The other thing is, if there's a whole line of cars, the aircraft will try to avoid even flying over anybody with that. But if cars start getting stacked up along the 518 or motorcycles, and it presents an area where they have to overfly that, we may have to change the resource that we use on that fire, and that could delay a response. The other thing is that as we've seen in a couple different areas, there's going to be interior activity picking up. And so when that interior activity picks up, feel free to call it in, especially if you're worried about it. But if we don't respond to something that we get air attack overhead and we know it's well interior, that's just because we don't want to move our resources out of position to be prepared to respond to something that is on the exterior of the fire that may threaten our lines. And finally, drones, drones and UASs. So it's illegal to fly them in the TFR, and we'd ask that you don't, because if there's a drone that's airborne and we spot it, then we have to shut down our aviation operation until we make sure that drone's on the ground. So with that, we'll go to the map. All right, up on the northern end along our northern containment line, continuing to do work with the heavy equipment the timber equipment to open that line up. That work's continuing, will be for multiple days. I'll drill down on that a little bit more tomorrow morning during the operational update. Going across our secondary line that we're putting in here through Gallegos Peak and across, work is improving. Work is ongoing on improving this line as well. And I think they should get about to Cerro de Oso this evening, and they're continuing to work to the east, doing that first push with the dozers on that line. Scouting for the best line location here to get tied back in front of the dozers and get it flagged, and then we'll be continuing that push down to the south along this ridge system to tie into the fire's edge north of Martinez Pond. One of those areas that we evaluated and we recognized that we needed to pay more attention to is right down in here, and that's ongoing. So you see here the dozer line is off of the fire line, and so we want to we will put crews in there to work right along that edge and make sure that there's no heat that could torch out and spot across the line. So that work's ongoing today. Depending on the report we get back, it may be continuing tomorrow. Going over to the 121 corridor, this area that we've been watching and trying to back down evenly to the road over the last several days. There's an area in here where it got alignment. So what that means is that some of the fire down low got below unburned fuel and then made a run uphill, had the benefit of that slope to preheat the stuff in front of it, and made a run up here. So that put up some smoke today. I'm sure folks down here saw it in the Holman area, but other people may have seen it as well. And then also this this interior pocket was starting to put up smoke today. Neither one of those were a threat to the line or a factor for any of our containment objectives. However, it was visible. Going back off to the west, off the 518 road to the southwest of the 518, there is now hand line all the way across the 518 road, all the way to Helispot 463. There is also hand line all the way around. This is the thumbprint up there. Crews are going to work that line back, continuing to mop it up. So look for any heat that they can find and extinguish it. And they're also going to continue to grid well out away from the fire's edge for any of those pieces of heat that we talked about, the duff and the material where it can hide the heat, and make sure that there's nothing out there that presents a threat to further growth, and extinguish that. The dozer operation to get this line put in and tied into the ridge north of Hickorita Peak and south of Ripley Point is ongoing, and they're continuing to they're continuing to do the work. They should be around the corner south of drop point 462, Helispot 461 by the end of the evening today. The additional efforts that were going on include scouting for potential control, for the need to put any control actions in place down here to the south of Helispot 463, and then we'll evaluate whether or not we insert crews in there tomorrow, depending on the potential that exists and what we see as the priorities as we enter this wind event. So we want to make sure that we're focusing on the areas that present the most proximal threat to the line, and that we at the same time aren't losing sight of something that may later present a threat. With that, it'll be the end of the operational update. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jason. We appreciate all of that operations and safety messages. I'm going to go ahead and turn it to our partners on the south for California Interagency Incident Management Team 5 Operations Section Chief Alex McBath.
All right, thank you. I would like to speak to you a little bit about terminology, because I'm going to be using it quite a bit this afternoon or this evening. I want to talk a little bit about spot fires. So a spot fire is a fire that comes out of the main fire, lands away from our control lines out in the green vegetation that hasn't burned, and it's not attached to the fire. So you'll see them like the thumb up on the west zone. They're out away from the fire. They're kind of their own fire out there, and we call those spot fires. The other terminology you'll hear is a slop over. Slop over usually comes off the interior line, right off the line, crosses the control feature, whether it's a dozer line or hand line, directly adjacent to where the fire behavior was, and then continues out away from the fire. We call that a slop over. So as I go into my walk around today, I'm going to speak to both. I'm going to speak to spot fires and then kind of explain what that means. So overall today, we did see a lot more fire behavior, like I've been telling you we'd probably see over the last couple of days. The lowering of RHs and the environmental factors and the winds kicking up have increased the fire behavior. Over on the east side, because the winds are coming out of the west, that fire behavior and the good work of all the resources on the east side, we don't have any real heat next to the lines, so we didn't see any fire behavior other than down here just west of Las Vegas. There was a wispy smoke that was coming up there. The crews walked in there, looked at it for risks, firefighter safety, decided they could take action and mop that up. So that piece on the east side was dealt with, and all the rest of it is in repair status, meaning we have folks out there repairing, chipping, fixing the things that we broke in the suppression of the wildfire. Moving around the southwest, many folks should have seen, if they haven't, the smoke columns that are coming out of the southwest corner and also up around Spring Mountain. So I'll speak about the southwest corner first. So the fire behavior, like we expected, picked up in the horseshoe here between East Bear Creek and Ruidoso Ridge, and that heat, it started actively burning in there with an active edge, but last report is everything is going towards the black. So no issues to our control lines. We have lots of crews down there monitoring it and doing the tactics they do to keep that fire on the east side of that control line. So that's been successful this afternoon, and they're still in there, and they'll be in there tonight. Now down here below Borealis Peak, specifically the 82 Alpha Delta Road, and between the Borealis Peak Road, there was a spot. And that spot occurred, we've been getting spots all along this line for about 4 days now from that last run, and the winds are really squirrely. They swirl around, and we're getting spots right there on that corner. And we got one a little further out this afternoon, and that spot's about 100 acres. It doesn't seem like it's that big right there, but this is big country. So it's about 100 acres. The crews had to back off for a short time. They re-engaged, and they're putting direct line on it. Last report, the fire has burned back into the black, and they should be able to pick it up on both flanks and hold it around 100 acres. We were prepared for that scenario. We knew that scenario could happen. That they do and tend to happen to get spot fires and or slop overs across our lines, and that's what we've been diligently working on, trying to mop up for the last few days. So you've probably seen a lot of smoke down here coming out of the southwest corner, and that should diminish over the next couple days. Now I want to move on up to Spring Mountain. So Spring Mountain had a fairly substantial column coming off of it, and up in Spring Mountain, Bear Creek, there was the fire had hooked around beneath a timber stand, probably about a 300 to 400 acre timber stand that's inside the old Trucis burn, and that stand started burning from the bottom to the top, which created head fire and creates a lot of fire behavior. And I was up there when it was occurring on a flight, and I can tell you there's about 100-foot flame lengths coming off there, but on the north side of it, it was flanking into the old fire scar where there wasn't any timber, and it was just falling out and pretty much dying in that fire scar. So we should see that. We may see more smoke in the coming days coming off that timber stand, but it also should reduce some. So it should have burnt most of what it was going to burn today. These critical fire weather environmental factors are really important, and they're really about 2 o'clock every afternoon. They seem to come into alignment, and we see a lot of fire behavior. So that's the time when our firefighters have to be the safest and have their heads on a swivel and understand the plan and know where they're going to go. So even though they may withdraw for a quick minute or an hour, they're always engaged, and we always have a plan to re-engage after we withdraw and get everybody back into a common picture on what needs to move forward. The rest of the fire, I flew from the zone break all the way down to the south to Elk Mountain, Bull Creek area. That still looks really, it's still within our containment lines. The stuff that's up in the wilderness, if there was smoke, it was not moving with any authority due to the elevations. So there hasn't been much forward movement at all in the north end, and the only real fire activity was in the Spring Mountain area. So I will say again that you will see us out there. We're going to be out there during these critical fire weather events, and if you see folks, tell them thank you for the hard work they're doing. And with that, I'll turn it back over.
Thank you so much, Alex. And before I turn it over to the East Zone, I want to talk about some changes that you're going to see coming up in the next couple days. So tonight will be the last report out from the East Zone. Tomorrow at 7 a.m., the Southwest Team 1 will assume command of the East Zone, and California Team 2 will travel home for some much-deserved days off. So with that, for the last time, I'm going to turn it over to California Interagency Incident Management Team 2 Operations Section Chief Keith Garola.
Thank you and good evening. So for our last community briefing here, again, good news. This last piece of open line, uncontained line, I shouldn't say open, it's been lined with handwork for quite a few days, but we finally were able to mark this on the map as black, which is contained, which we feel really confident that the fire will remain within the boundaries and confines of this area. It was a lot warmer today. We had some wind on it. The humidities were down, and again, the crews will remain in there over the next few days to ensure that nothing flares up in the last remaining red part of the line that we have. A lot of good work again. Continue to see removing all the hose and pumps that we had. The crews will remain in here patrolling for quite a few days. Big work effort today up here in the secondary line behind Black Lake and Angel Fire. Again, the line has been in for quite a few days, but they're widening it and they're making it, excuse me, better able to ensure that any type of run that may come out in the future will withstand that run. Excuse me. So that's pretty much it for us on the East Zone. We appreciate all the support we've had from the community, and thank you again for all the help.
Thank you so much, Keith, and safe travels home to you and all of your folks. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our fire behavioral analyst now, Stuart Turner.
Good evening. My name is Stuart Turner. I'm the fire behavior analyst for Southwest Team 1. As the fire behavior analyst, I predict what the fire is going to do, very much like a meteorologist does for the weather. I look at three things. I look at the topography, the slope, the hills out there, because we know the fire runs up slope faster than it does down slope. I look at the fuels, how dry they are, how moist they may be, the fine dead fuels or the primary carrier of the fire. So those are the important fuels that I look at. And then I also look at the weather. So let's take a look at the weather and see what's coming up for tomorrow. And as we look at the matrix here, we can see Friday, May 27th, hot and dry. We're going to have a little bit of cloud smoke cover. That solar radiation is going to be decreased ever so slightly, but not a big factor for tomorrow. The temperatures are going to be sufficiently high. The humidity is going to stay down low. The overnight humidity recovery tonight and tomorrow night are both low enough that the fire out there thinks that it's just daytime without the sunlight. So it's going to continue to burn through the night without any trouble. And then some of you may have been questioning what this Haynes index is. That's a measure of instability of the atmosphere or stability of the atmosphere. The higher the number, the more unstable the atmosphere is. So if you look at that as opening and closing the damper on a chimney. So when the damper is completely open, the fire burns readily and intensely. When it's completely closed, it burns very little. So at a 6, that damper is very much open and the fire has the opportunity to burn readily throughout the fire area. And then the winds will be the driving factor tomorrow for any fire behavior out there. The higher those wind speeds, the farther and faster the fire will move. 14 with gusts of 28 is enough wind to move the fire around, but it's not those big winds that we saw several weeks ago that really push this fire around. Those winds will start to come in later on in the weekend and early next week. So just be aware of that we do have sufficient wind tomorrow, but it's not going to be the monster wind that we've had in the past. Then the wind direction changes tomorrow, and that's going to be the key factor that we're looking at. We're going to have that west-southwest wind, so that's going to be a different direction. Most of us had the northwest wind today. The west-southwest will start pushing fire in different directions and testing different lines, as you heard from Operations Coil. And looking out the week on the matrix, you can see that we start getting into more fire weather. That fire weather watch on Saturday will probably end up as a red flag. We're going to be extremely dry. Should be a fairly big fire day that day, as will be Sunday and Monday and probably Tuesday. So we'll just stay tuned and see how those days start shaping up, but they're not looking all that good for fire weather. Now let's move over to the map and we'll see what's going to be happening, or at least what I think will be happening in the upcoming days. If I can get my map to come up. Let's try this little trick. There we go. And there's your map. So let's start up here on the easy stuff, the northeast corner of the fire. You heard from operations. They turned that every little piece black up there. So not thinking we'll see a whole lot of issue there. Once again, we're going to get that west-southwest wind. So the wind will be blowing off of this direction, hitting the line. Good test for that tip up here in the northeast portion of the fire up above Guadalupe. So we'll see if anything comes out of that. Not expecting any issues there because we have tested that a couple times before. As we come down the entire east side, we'll be tested once again. Not expecting to see anything come out. However, you probably will still see interior islands, trees, anything like that that has fire around it and some fresh fuel that will continue to burn out and cause smoke in the air that you may see. As we come down to the south portion of the fire, that southwest wind is going to be beneficial here. Anything should push back into the fire and not spot across the line. And then the big news, of course, today are the two fingers that you saw come out several days ago, and you heard from operations they had that spot fire come out and start moving around in that area. So that's going to continue to put up smoke tomorrow until they get that surrounded and taken care of. And let's move to let me share a different screen real quick, and I'll show you what that spot fire kind of looks like. There we go. Let's get down to it. This is a Google Earth map of the infrared perimeter of fire. And here's the lower finger. Let me pan out a little bit so you can see where we're at. Here's the lower finger right here. And you can see the analysts put the spot fire on the landscape and then burned it for 3 days. So this is what it probably will do today. Like the operation said, it's burning back into itself. So it's going to run into the existing fire, the black, and self-extinguish on that side. So the only sides the fire crews have to worry about is going to be on the west and south sides of that little spot. If they can get around that, they'll prevent this number 2 brown growing, and then number 3 day the blue growing. And this projection is if there was no suppression action, no crews in there, no aircraft, anything like that. So that is just a prediction of what could happen. And while we're on this one, you can take a look at, and that came out of this donut hole right here, unburned fuels spotted out. And then we look up the horseshoe here, and you can see the horseshoe unburned in there. These little red dots are intense heat in there. Let me show you what the topography looks like while we have Google Earth up, fly in there, so you can see the terrain the fire crews are working on. With that southwest wind now, that'll be pushing everything back into the black, back into the burned area, and it would have to try to back down this slope to get to the west. So it's going to have to fight the wind and fight the slope to get out here. So that's going to give those crews more opportunity to get that taken care of and get that burned out so that it doesn't spread beyond the control lines. Now let's fly up to the northern little piece in the wilderness that was talked about by operations and the timber that burned and the smoke column that came out. And that's this country right here where the cursor's at. Move that around for you. So you can see the topography in there, the timber island that burned, and then that gray white is the scar from the past fire that it burned into and self-extinguished. Okay, let me go back to the other map. So it'll make a little bit more sense for us all. Okay, so a little bit backing in that area, a little bit more backing in the Bull Canyon area, but nothing moving around big time. And then as we get up to Angostura, excuse me, as we get up to Angostura area, we've been hearing operations talk about that line up there. They've been putting that in. It's had favorable winds. The spots had favorable winds on it. Tomorrow, those winds are not going to be so favorable. They're going to be out of the south, southwest, and that's going to test that line for those folks up there. They're going to see any kind of weaknesses that may be in there. They're going to see any kind of spots that may be across the line and find those. And then hopefully they'll be able to get around those. The wind should be light enough. The Air Force should be flying. The number of crews in there should be able to take care of any spots. Not worried about that up in there. As we get up into the northern portion of the west side and the Chacon area, not expecting any issues there. Once again, we're going to have that west-southwest winds pushing on that, so that'll help test that. And then as we come down to 121, continue to see some of those interior fuels burn out. That's going to keep on going until those fuels are completely extinguished and we don't see anything in there anymore. So let's wrap up for tomorrow. All the fuels are available. The fuel beds are extremely receptive to any kind of embers, any kind of mistakes that the fire crews, or even people, the public out there might make. It's ready to burn, and it's just looking for an opportunity to burn. Fortunately, the winds are going to be mostly favorable for the fire where we do have open line, so I'm not expecting any kind of big growth tomorrow. Should be mostly minimal. The most area of concern is going to be the northwest corner, and as it tests those lines to make sure that everything will hold. And that would be the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stuart. And we're going to turn it back down to our partners at South for a report out from San Miguel County Sheriff Chris Lopez.
Good evening. Thank you, Celeste. So, as you've heard from operations, still a lot of good work going on. We've been talking for the past several days about the drying trend and the critical fire weather that's coming. Well, it's now here. As a lot of you have seen the smoke up in the air, I know I got a lot of calls about it today. But the good news, as you heard from operations as well, is that it is within their containment lines and they are working on it. So, as I've been reporting to you, we've had a lot of issues on that southwest corner, and it continues to give struggles, but it's looking a lot better than it did in the past. So I still feel really confident in the work that they're doing out there. The reason I bring that up is because I'm also getting a lot of calls from the residents in the Pecos corridor in terms of evacuation statuses and questions that they have. And as you've heard from the reports today, there is still spot fires. There is still issues that we're having along the containment lines. And with that and life safety being our primary concern as law enforcement, we're still not at a place yet where we can open up and get people back in, especially in that upper Pecos Canyon, especially with egress and all the issues that we'd have to deal with in terms of putting people back in and then something happening and having to pull them back out. That's something that we definitely don't want to do. It did take us quite a while to get into all those places and get those people out initially, and I just don't think we'd have the time if we would have to do it in short-term notice. So those are all things that we have to look at on a daily basis and kind of talk about and discuss with the team, and we'll continue to do that. And just know that like I tell you every day, we have this discussion on a daily basis, probably a few times a day, and it is very much on the mind of law enforcement and on the mind of the incident management team as well, just how important it is for you to get back in there and get back to your property. So again, some of the other issues that I see with that is also we have a lot of fire personnel up there doing work, and if we were to open it up and it does cause a lot of issues with safety. If, with all the operations and work that they're doing to secure those lines and make them good enough to a point that we can get people back in there, well, if we introduce people into that area, it makes it a lot harder, and then they go from doing fire operations to doing safety measures if something happens. So those are all things that are also taken into consideration for safety and law enforcement, and like I said, our primary concern is to keep you safe. So just keep that in mind. With that, I do want to ensure you that we do continue to do our patrols, especially in those areas that are evacuated, and we will continue to serve you all in ensuring that we're keeping an eye on your place and making sure that it's safe. So that's something that I want to tell you that we are continuing to do. We do have a lot of resources still in the area, to include our sheriff's office, state police, game and fish, livestock board. There's a lot of resources out there, and they're committed to life and property safety. So I've been reporting that we've also been doing a lot of work in terms of recovery and flood mitigation and response. I can definitely tell you that there's a lot of good stuff happening right now in terms of boots on the ground. I know we've had some good conversations with FEMA, and they're starting to become a lot more active now that things are cooling down on that east side. We did put out some literature some time back about the precautions and measures you should take when you go to your place that has been destroyed. And I'll probably put that back out. We'll probably look at putting that back out for everybody to look at, along with some other literature, which Travis from our EOC probably talked to you more about. But things are starting to get into a place now where we're going to start definitely getting more work done. So good news for everybody. And also in terms of our flood mitigation work, that's also moving along really good. And hopefully you'll start seeing some stuff happening there as well. That's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sheriff. We appreciate your continued support and cooperation and showing up almost every night to let us know what's the latest and greatest going on in San Miguel County. I'm going to turn it over to Colfax County Sheriff Leonard Baca.
Thank you, Celeste. So good evening, everyone. I'm Leonard Baca with Colfax County. Some good news today in our meeting. We were able to move Hidden Lake, Black Lake, and Black Lake Resort. We were able to downgrade them from set into ready. Well, Angel Fire and the Vietnam Veterans Memorial area and Taos Pines are going to be remain in ready. So that was a really good meeting today. I'm excited to pass that information on to everybody. We got that out about 12 o'clock today. I want to thank the incident management team, Team 2, and all the other teams for all their hard work trying to get this fire out and keep everybody's home safe. I want to thank all of our local partners, state police, the local fire crews, county fire crews, Angel Fire, police department, our emergency manager with Colfax County, Tommy Hill. We've had a lot of good conversations and we're continuing to work on this. We will still be monitoring everything day to day and having discussions on when we can hopefully downgrade everything back into the gray polygons is the hope soon. Also for everybody coming into the weekend, we still have a lot of firefighters and apparatus in the area. So please slow down if you're coming into the area for the holiday. We want to keep those folks safe and keep all of you safe, which is our primary goal. With that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Baca. We appreciate your kind words and your safety messages. They really are helping to get that word out there to keep our firefighters safe on the ground. I'm going to turn it down back to the south for Emergency Operations Center Representative Travis Martinez.
Good evening. So I'm Travis Martinez. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Department of Homeland Security Emergency Operations Center. You haven't seen me in a little bit. We've been working very hard, working with all the counties that have been affected or impacted by this fire, gathering information from multiple state agencies to get information that all New Mexicans need to hear, and we need to get that word out. Everything that I talk about tonight will be sent out in a release to all agencies. That way it's shared and it's able to be out there on social media, county websites, and also on the Department of Homeland Security's emergency website as well. So just to start off with some of the state of New Mexico and federal wildlife resources, there's a lot of agencies, like I said, that are involved. So starting off, there's the Aging and Long-Term Services, and we'll share that information as far as phone numbers. You know, there's assistance with shelter information and discounted lodging for for elders that are out there and they can't stay at a shelter and they need better care, better beds. In that sense, there's assistance for that. There's food vouchers for the elders out there as well. With San Miguel County, there you'd contact Sonia Castillo. There's also some for Mora and Colfax counties. You talk to Julia Martinez. Those phone numbers will be shared not only with the agencies, but also the fire teams as well, shared on their social media services. The New Mexico Human Services Department, that's your SNAP and Medicaid benefits. There's assistance for temporary SNAP benefits for individuals that are impacted by the fire. So if you don't qualify for SNAP, you're going to qualify now. You call in, you get registered, and they're going to get you those type of benefits to replenish your food and stuff like that as you repopulate into your home. There's assistance with TANF, so that's the temporary assistance for needy families. That's like cash assistance that they can help you out with the needs that you have. It's the same thing. You call the number and you're going to get that information. They'll get you qualified if you're eligible. There's behavioral health, crisis counselors that are staffed 24/7. So if you have issues pertaining to that, you can call these people and they can walk you through these things and talk to you, and you can vent a little bit about your situation and what you're going through. We do understand that a lot of us have seen a lot, gone through a lot, and it's just going to be an uphill battle for a long time. Just like everyone said, this is a long-term event. There's also information on support services and property damage services also to the Human Services Department. We go down to the New Mexico Office of Superintendent of Insurance. With this agency, they're going to help you with assistance with filing your claim, obtaining copies of your insurance, and assistance with understanding your policy. And there's also that, you have issues with your insurer, you call the Superintendent of Insurance. That state agency will help you to deal with your insurance provider. The New Mexico Environmental Department, right now they're working really hard in some communities in the Mora side. Also, they're going to start reaching out to the San Miguel side. They're going to have assistance with community drinking water. So community waters that have been damaged, whether it's storage tanks, water pumps, etc., they're going to help you to restore those type of utilities. And there's also going to be assistance with private well water quality. So you're going to call the same person. They're going to establish another contact just specifically for private well water quality. Moving on to the Department of Finance. There you're going to have emergency rental assistance. So if you're living in a rental, maybe somewhere in the Mora area, the San Miguel area, you're renting, it burns down. You don't have anywhere to stay right now. The Department of Finance will help you with the emergency rental assistance to get you a roof over your head. The New Mexico Department of Workforce Solutions, the number you're going to call there, you'll call for unemployment benefits. If you lost your job because you were out because of the fire, etc., there's programs to help you apply for the unemployment benefits. Those eligible may be provided with benefits from when you were initially unemployed due to the fire. So it's just not going to go when you actually call. Give them all the information. Make sure you have all the information so that they can backdate that to get you that assistance from day one when you were affected by this wildfire. Moving on, there's also Restart New Mexico. That's assistance with resumes and applications to find jobs that are going to suit you and get you back to work in the working force. The New Mexico Livestock Board, they're continuing to assist with location and identification of missing livestock. They've been busy dealing with that. We understand as fire crews went in, they had to remove fences to get the proper equipment in there. Animals started to run around. We understand that. The Livestock Board is out there actively locating and identifying that livestock. And there's still assistance with livestock loss, obviously through incident reports. So keep that in mind through the New Mexico Livestock Board. The New Mexico Early Childhood Education and Care Department. You're going to call this number, and with that, you're going to have assistance for child care providers, assistance with payments for the child care providers, assistance for expecting mothers and children with health care needs, and also with pre-K services. So early childhood is also out there for all those, the mothers out there and the kids. That part that's taken care of. That department is there to assist you there as well. Moving on to a couple of federal agencies, the Department of Labor. There, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. Through this, there's services that are eligible for adults that are available to aid in obtaining good jobs and providing them with the assistance to search for these jobs and training opportunities. The big one, a lot of people have been asking, I'm trying to gather more information on this. There's some great information out there. We're just trying to consolidate it to try to make it a little bit more easier to understand. and for me to understand as well. So with the New Mexico Department of Agriculture, USDA, the Food and Nutrition Services, that's the SNAP Employment and Training. Here they're going to help participants gain skills by assisting in training and support services to help you move into the workforce. We move on to the Farm Service Agency. Here they're going to help, there's NAP, which is Non-Insured Crop Disaster Assistance. That provides financial assistance to crops that were destroyed. You're not going to have a yield or a very high yield this year, obviously, due to the wildfires. Tree assistance programs, emergency conservation programs, emergency forest restoration programs. Those are just some that are followed by the Farm Service Agency, which is under the USDA. Still continuing with the USDA, you're going to move on to the Natural Resource Conservation Services. And these have offices in Las Vegas and the Mora area. Here you're going to have environmental quality incentive programs, provide to providers with financial resources. Emergency watershed programs, that's recovery. There's funds addressed erosion-related watersheds, a lot of the stuff that Sheriff Lopez is talking about, and that counties are actively working with state agencies, FEMA, to establish these mitigation issues that are going to arise from the monsoon season, water running down, to protect your homes, to protect the watersheds. USDA will be assisting with that. Livestock Forage Disaster Program. There's compensation for eligible livestock producers that have suffered grazing loss. Fire scorched through your property. Obviously, you're not going to have grassland for the livestock to feed off of. There's assistance for that as well. And lastly, just wanted to remind everybody about the FEMA assistance. Don't be deterred by that. I think there's over 300 and some individuals that are running through all these 4 counties, getting people signed up through the FEMA programs. You know, you call the helpline at the 1-800-621-3362. Or visit the disasterassistance.gov, or you download the smart app for your phone or tablet. There you're going to have rental assistance, lodging expense reimbursement, and home repair assistance. I just want to remember that we're also still working on a proper debris removal. So as you're returning home, if you have losses, the shed burned down, if your house burned down, there's going to be proper ways for you to dispose of all of this debris. There's different things that you have to do to make sure that this being disposed of in an environmental friendly manner. You're not putting refrigerators with vegetation that you need to go and mulch. All those things is very important. Hazard materials being mixed with other material that could combust and make it dangerous for people that are removing the debris. So just keep that in mind as well. And of course, all this information that I shared with you is going to come out. It's going to be more simpler for you guys to look at and read and readily available. But all of this information can also be obtained through the Fire Resource Hotline at 1-800-432-2080. And that's provided by the Department of Homeland Security. I just want to ask people to please continue to be patient with law enforcement. Be aware of fire crews that are out there on all these roads that are being reopened. All of your sheriff's departments have advised that. State police are also out there trying to make sure that these roads are safe. So keep that in mind, that there's still fire teams out there going back and forth to the points that they need to get to, as well as their apparatuses that are there as they're retrieving them. Be aware of that. I just want to thank everybody for that. I want to thank the communities from all the counties that have been affected. Thank you for your patience. It has been really, really great. I know my phone doesn't stop blowing up. I know a lot of the sheriff's department's phone doesn't stop blowing up. Keep them coming. Keep calling. I'm not scared to answer the phone. If I don't answer, it's probably because I was talking to somebody else. But keep them coming. We'll get you those answers. I just want to ask everybody to continue to be confident, stay courageous, and New Mexico strong. Thank you.
Thank you for all that valuable information, Travis. We're going to send it over to our partners in the East for closing comments from California Interagency Incident Management Team to Incident Commander Nikki Johnny.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for sticking with us. So we are on our last work day, and tomorrow at 0700, we'll be turning over command to the Southwest Interagency Management Team 1. So this east side and the west side will now become north again. We'll still have the south, but we'll be north. You'll notice that we have lots of block line. We completed it, thank goodness, before we left. But that doesn't mean anyone's going to turn their backs. They're still going to be patrolling it. There's still going to be mop up. They'll still be cruising that area like it was stated earlier. So I just wanted to thank everybody for the support that we've gotten since we've been here. The United States Forest Service, the state of New Mexico, the sheriffs, the cooperators. We've been staying at Philmont Scout Camp for the last 2 weeks. Great facility. I wanted to thank them. We also have a camp at Eagle Nest at the elementary school, and we've been using the Girl Scout camp at Angel Fire. And that's just for the East Zone. There's many other cooperators, agencies out there that are helping everybody else in the other 2 teams. So with that, I just wanted to say thank you one last time, and stay strong, New Mexico.
Thank you, IC Johnny. And again, you guys have safe travels home, and I will likely see you again some point this summer. Thanks for all the coordination and hard work over there on the East Zone. I wanted to point those who don't spend all day on our Facebook page to go take a look at some of the educational videos and posts we've been putting up. We've got stuff everywhere from aviation videos to hotshot crews, and we've got the National Guard members that have assisted us. I mean, it's across the board now that we have a nice, strong staff and a little time to breathe. We are really working on helping you guys understand what it is we do out here. And don't miss the story on Cinder, the baby elk that was rescued by a hotshot crew. It will melt your heart. With that, we will see you tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Until then, stay safe.